Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we unpack the financial mysteries of the business world with a twist. Today we're diving into Oportun Financial Corporation's latest dealings, and let's just say it involves a bit of a shake-up in the boardroom. So what's the big news here? Oportun Financial Corporation has made a deal with a group called Findell Capital Management and some of their friends. This isn't just any deal though, it's about who's calling the shots, or at least who's influencing the decisions at the very top. Here's the lowdown. Oportun, also known as the company in this report, signed a letter agreement on July 14th of this year with Findell Capital Management and its affiliates. Think of this as a handshake that's going to change how the company's board of directors operates. The most immediate change is that a guy named Warren Wilcox is going to be added to Oportun's board of directors. He's not just joining for a short stint either, he's set to be on the board until the company's annual meeting in 2028. This means he's got a pretty long leash to make his mark. This agreement also sets a specific timeline, a so-called restricted period. It basically runs until about 15 days before the deadline for nominating directors for that 2028 meeting. This keeps things interesting and sets boundaries for both Oportun and Findell. Now, for a bit of board musical chairs, Oportun has agreed that by their 2026 shareholder meeting, one of the directors who was already on the board before February 7th, 2024 will step down and won't be up for re-election. This is a direct consequence of this new agreement and suggests a planned refresh of the board's membership. Here's another key piece of the puzzle. If Findell maintains an ownership stake of at least 5% in Oportun's stock, and Warren Wilcox happens to leave the board before the 2026 meeting for any reason, like he can't continue or he resigns, Findell gets to nominate someone to take his place. Of course, the board still has to approve this new person and they have to meet certain standards outlined in the agreement. This gives Findell continuing influence over board composition as long as they hold a significant chunk of the company. Findell, on the other hand, has agreed to some standstill restrictions. This is pretty standard in these kinds of agreements. It basically means they can't just go out and buy up more than 9.9% of Oportun's voting stock. They also can't try to rally shareholders to vote in a certain way, or get involved in major company deals like selling the company or merging it, unless there are specific exceptions. These restrictions are meant to create a more stable environment and prevent disruptive actions. During that restricted period we talked about earlier, Findell also agrees to vote their shares in line with what the Oportun board recommends. This applies to things like electing new directors or any other major decisions put to a shareholder vote. However, there are exceptions if powerful investor advisories disagree with the Oportun board's recommendation and their recommendation aligns with Findell's preferred outcome. Findell can vote as they please on those specific matters. They also retain their own discretion on major transactions. This part is crucial as it shows Findell is agreeing to support the current leadership on many fronts, but with specific escape clauses. In a bid to keep things civil, both Oportun and Findell have agreed not to badmouth or sue each other, again with some exceptions. This is all about maintaining a constructive relationship, at least on the surface, while they navigate this new arrangement. And to top it all off, Oportun is going to cover up to $1.2 million in expenses for Findell, covering their legal and other costs related to this whole agreement. This is a pretty significant payment, showing how serious Oportun is about getting this deal done and securing Findell's cooperation. The filing also lists exhibits which are essentially the actual documents backing up all these claims. The primary one here is Exhibit 10.1 and Exhibit 99 and Exhibit 99. Exhibit 10.1 is the actual letter agreement we've been discussing between Oportun, Findell Capital Management and others. And Exhibit 99.1 is a press release from Oportun announcing this agreement and the addition of Mr. Wilcox to the board. The report is signed off by Kathleen Layton, who holds the important titles of Chief Legal Officer and Corporate Secretary for Oportun. This confirms the company is officially acknowledging and filing this information. Now, looking at this whole situation with Oportun and Findell, it paints an interesting picture. Oportun, a company that provides financial services, seems to be dealing with activist investor pressure. Findell Capital Management is essentially saying they want a seat at the table, and Oportun has, at least in part, agreed to give it to them. The appointment of Warren Wilcox and the agreements around board representation and voting rights suggest a move to appease Findell and potentially avoid a more public and disruptive fight. What's the underlying story here? It's likely that Findell saw something they didn't like about Oportun's direction or performance and decided to push for change. By getting a director on the board and securing voting influence, they can now work from within. The restrictions placed on Findell, like the ownership cap and the standstill agreement, suggest Oportun is trying to balance Findell's demands with maintaining its own strategic control and avoiding excessive shareholder concentration. The fact that Oportun is willing to pay $1 million in expenses is a clear sign they value a cooperative path. It's better for them to settle this with Findell and get Mr. Wilcox on board than to face a protracted battle that could hurt the stock price and distract management. However, we need to watch closely. Will this new board member and the agreement lead to better performance for Oportun? Or will it slow down decision making or lean towards Findell's interests over other shareholders? The company's direction is clearly being influenced by external stakeholders. And the next few years, especially leading up to that 2028 meeting, will be telling. We need to see if this board change leads to concrete results that benefit all investors, or if it's just a way to calm a vocal shareholder. Alright, that's our breakdown of Oportun Financial Corporation's latest filing. What's your take on these boardroom changes and what they signal for the company's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out our Discord community linked in the description below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.